Alright, so I do want to go ahead and make this a fairly quick video in the regard of important information. So this will basically be a summary of Season 13, what's coming in Season 14, and how to prepare for it, as well as some of the recent news with it. So I'll be putting timestamps in the description of topics we cover, so if you don't want to be spoiled with plot or anything for Season 14, you can go ahead and click that now. We'll be starting with a bit more recent news, that being the topic of what Season 14 is about. So, over the last few weeks, there have been several leaks revealing about what is coming in Season 14, aside from the obvious such as the Vaults of Glass, the new Transmog system, and the new updates to the way power leveling works. We were informed of a few new returning exotic weapons, such as Vex Mythoclast and Super Good Advice. It was heavily theorized, and many of the leaks from third-party articles swayed towards the plot of this being a more Vex-related story, which makes sense, considering Vault of Glass and whatnot. But in recent news, it has actually come to our attention that in the files of Bungie.net, that it's very possible the next season could be Siva-themed, given the name Season of the Splicer, in comparison to Season of the Collective for Vex themes. For those who aren't aware of what Siva is essentially a nanotechnology created by the Warmind Rasputin to wipe out the Iron Lords, more specifically the Iron Lord named Felwinter. The last time we had any encounter with Siva was in the 0-hour mission to obtain the exotic weapon Outbreak Perfected. But even before that, our last experience with Siva was in Rise of Iron and Destiny 1, so it's been at least a good 3 or 4 years since then. Obtaining Siva and being able to control it would be very beneficial if the Guardians were able to do so, given the growing threat of Savathûn and the darkness within the next year. I'll probably touch upon that more in a later video. With Transmog coming, the Destiny community had been extremely excited to be able to customize cosmetics on their characters with a more permanent look. In the latest This Week at Bungie article, the developers went into a bit more detail about how this would work, and honestly, the community is really outraged. Within the last few years, Bungie has really focused on monetization rather than quality of gameplay. This being an example of one such, the Transmog system goes something like this. Defeat enemies with Synth Strand. Spend Synth Strand on bounties to earn Synth Cord. Convert Synth Cord at the loom on the tower into Synth Weave. Use Synth Weave to create an unlocked armor piece into a universal ornament. Now that system itself is very grindy, but which is to be expected with Bungie. If they were to do away with either step 1 or 2, I feel that'd be much better for quality of life. Where a lot of the outrage is going is that players can earn up to only 10 Synth Weave per class per season, with the exception of this next season, given that it's the introductory. Season 14 will have 20 available instead of 10. So that means you'll be able to unlock 20 armor pieces for your choosing class. Every season after that, you'll only be able to do 10 per class per season. The community is outraged that this is the case, and that there is a limit to just how many times a player would be able to unlock armor pieces per season. If this is available to the game, why should I be limited by the number of times I can do it? Another reason that the community is frustrated is now because of the cost of shaders. The Bright Dust currency has been modified to where obtaining the season pass and doing the seasonal quests and stories is the main way of obtaining it, in comparison to weekly bounties available to the entire community back before that change. It's difficult to earn really large amounts of Bright Dust if you don't have the season pass, and with the increase by nearly 750% of the cost of shaders, this really isn't an exception. Shaders were priced at 40 per and will now be raised to 300 per given the new system. Also, I'd really like to note, for players who have shaders in their inventory, recycle them for Glimmer and Legendary Shards before the Season 13 ends. You have until May 11th. Aside from the Transmog system, the power leveling has changed from increasing by 50 per season to 10 per season. So hopefully that'll be a bit less grindy and constantly like prevent you from constantly having to get new gear and whatnot. So hopefully that'll be an easier transition. If you've missed out on the seasonal story and want to know what's happened, let's go ahead and go over a small summary. Also, I really do suggest reading the lore for this season. There was honestly some really cool stuff, mainly the Profactus armor sets and the Empress lore book and Threaded Needle, I think it was. I really like that. Anyways, after losing her homeworld to the Hive, the daughter of Callus, an empress of the Cabal Empire, came to the Sol System and reached out to the Guardians. She had hopes of allying with them so that they may face off against the Hive and darkness together. But this deal was denied when she had stated the Guardians would be under her, rather than equals. This resulted in us being at war once again, though this was no war like the Red War, like Gaul stealing our light with little way of obtaining it back. This was ceremonial. These battles were for the Cabal to prove themselves to Keitel so that they may serve at her side. With each battleground, we stepped in to stop these loyalists. During the course of these battles and the season, there had been an assassination attempt on Commander Zavala's life, in which this left him shaken. Crow, who we had helped during Season of the Hunt, had been spying on him and had prevented Zavala from being killed that night. Crow then was given the task of being his bodyguard, but was given a firm warning from Osiris to keep his face hidden. Along with many personal troubles from Crow that he speaks to you about, we stand witness to a lot of what Lord Saladin's thoughts and mentality with allying with the Cabal. In short, he's firmly against it, and he believes that eradication of the Cabal race would be more of a reasonable choice than allying with them. Saladin helps lead many of these attacks in the Proving Grounds, and personally I'm a bit disgusted with the guy. His whole mentality of killing the Cabal and wiping them out, in comparison to Rise of Iron, with how honorable and more careful he seemed, just something feels right. War is all he can focus on right now. Regardless, while the battlegrounds were going off, a distress signal had come from a ship far beyond the normal reaches of space. A Cabal ship, called the Glykon. It was honestly unclear how long it had been there, but upon investigation we had come to realize the ship had been infested with all sorts of flora, much similar to the flora within the Drifter's ship when loading into Gambit. Along with the flora, there were many traces of scorn. Long story short, Callus had held this ship to experiment with the scorn, in hopes to commune with the darkness. He even had a guardian present to help, one of his shadows, but things went wrong, and the only traces left were the clues of this dead man's tale. Towards the end of the season, Zavala sent a message to Keitel, saying that it is time to end this fight, and send our champions forward. Keitel agrees, and we face off in her land tank. We succeed, and it is then Zavala and Keitel have a truce. During this pact, Scions who were present had used technology on Zavala's ghost to sever him from his light, attempting to assassinate him again. Crow quickly stepped in the way, getting hit and having his mask break, and Keitel quickly defeats one of the Scions involved. Like Bane. That poor guy's back. Gosh. Keitel makes it clear that she didn't order that, and Zavala gets back up and sees none other than Uldren Sov beside him. Taking the time to recognize that Uldren had died 2 years ago, he then takes Crow's hand, helping him up. In the aftermath, Keitel makes an announcement to the Cabal Empire, stating that the Cabal will no longer be remnant on Earth, and any traitors will suffer the same fate as those she executed for treason. Zavala sends Crow off for recon, and we say our goodbyes. And the story continues in Season 14. Whether it be about the Vex or about the Splicers, or Siva in general, I'm honestly really excited to see what's coming. Story-wise, I can't get over the world building and the lore and the stories that Destiny manages to make. They're just, I love them so much. But anyways, if you enjoyed the video and thought this was informational, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. Any support helps my channel out immensely, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm Athris, and I'm a fanatic for lore and whatnot, so expect to hear a lot of that in Destiny news occasionally. Otherwise, I will go ahead and see you in the next video. Ven Aak high. Wind guide you.